Hey everybody, how's it going? Today I would like to go over an article that is about M1 MacBooks. It says there's a class action lawsuit planned for M1 MacBook screen cracks. The TLDR of this article is they say that these machines seem to be cracking on their own. There are threads on both the Apple community support forums and Reddit with users either reporting that screen cracks occurred when they opened or closed a lid or that they were simply present the next time they came to use the machine. And I discuss a lot of MacBook flaws on this channel. I have an entire video titled The Horrible Truth About Apple's Repeated Engineering Failures. Many people crap on me for that video, but they never dispute and not even one of the flaws that I have posted in that video. They have a lot of problems with the devices. That being said, I am not going to universally cast shade on Apple, particularly for issues that have not been proven yet, and there's a lot of reason to have a lot of skepticism around this particular issue. Now, every single time I've defended Apple in the past, whether it was about the IRP program and thanking them for it when it wound up being a scam, or saying thank you for caring about user privacy, which in the last month we found out was bullshit. I often, when I compliment Apple, very shortly thereafter, I have to eat crow. And it's very possible I'll have to eat crow here, but I'm not going to make something up, and I'm not going to, just go against the grain of what I've discussed on this channel for 8 years simply for the purpose of crapping on Apple. So one thing that's important to understand is that Dr. Gregory House, fake doctor, real advice, he used to say something that was very prophetic, which is everybody lies. And he was discussing his patients. Everybody lies. And if you watch any of the board repair videos I do on this channel, I have over 600 of them, and they're in a playlist that I'll link down below. Many machines that we work on are liquid damaged. And this is not the type of company where I opened it 10 or 13 years ago and I just never was involved with anything. I've worked the front desk a lot. And it's very similar what happens when someone shows up. They show up, the machine's not turning on, I go, hey, you spill anything on it? You drop anything like that? No, I didn't do anything. And then I open it up. I'm like, you sure you didn't spill anything on it? No. And then I show them that the machine looks like it was dragged through a sewer. And you can see from many of my repairs that many of these boards that I work on kind of look like they were dragged through a sewer. Now, what the customer is doing in this instance is they're not lying to me, and that's the important thing to understand. I discussed it in a 4-part series called You Broke It, Professional Laptop Repair Customer Service. There's part 1 up here, 2, 3, and 4. In that video series, I was saying that most customers do not lie to you. What they do is they lie to themselves. And then once they believe the lie they've told themselves, they tell you the truth as they then see it. The George Costanza lie, where it's not a lie if you believe it. And with a lot of people, if telling themselves the truth, if believing in the truth, means that they are liable for a $1,000 repair, you bet your ass their brain is going to do anything it can, even if it seems irrational and illogical, in order to protect their wallet. So many people will come up with a reason that they can reasonably believe that the glass just cracked on its own and believe that, so that they don't believe that they're lying when they go to the Apple store and they say that it cracked on its own. And I've had to deal with this for many years. This is also not something unique to the M1 MacBook. If you take a look over here, this forum thread is from 2019, spontaneous internal crack. Like, no, you can see it's blatantly obvious. It's right there. This one over here, iMac cracked on by itself. Are you kidding? It says, how can it have cracked by itself? No, it did not. It looks like your kid took this shit and shot it with a BB gun. That does not happen on its own. There's another core thread over here. And I remember commenting on a thread a long time ago. And one of these petition websites where you get a bunch of people to sign signatures, try to get a company to change things. This goes back to 2007. People were claiming that the A1181 MacBook, which was thick as a brick, was cracking on its own, which was complete bullshit. There was a lot wrong with the A1181 MacBook, and one of those things was not that it cracked on its own. And this is something that I described in a video that I did about 8 years ago. And I'll just play you a clip from this video so that you can hear what my thoughts on it were. Again, I'm not going to change the thoughts that I had in this video simply because I dislike Apple, because that would be being disingenuous. So I'm going to play you this right here. And yeah. It just broke on its own. And I said, ma'am, it's physically impossible for glass to break on its own. Like, for example, see my window here? Let's count to 5. See, not broken because nothing happened to it. And it's this exact same thing is true for a phone. The only way the phone is going to crack again, you put it in your pocket with your keys and somebody bumps into you, you drop it on the desk, because by the way, that's a lot of people's favorite line is, I just put it down on the table and it dropped. Here's how most average people put their phone down on their night table. And then they want to know why it fucking broke. Suck it. I've seen people put their phone down like that in my store when they're playing with their phone and I tell them their laptop is ready. Like, they've done that. Now, granted, there is the possibility that you can leave a piece of broken glass in there, and that if you put the screen on top of the broken glass, there's pressure, so it can be more likely to crack. That does happen. 0.1% of the time, if even. The other 99% is someone doing this and then trying to convince themselves that that wasn't it. It must be that the screen cracked on its own. And it's really important to understand that as much as I dislike Apple, this claim that screens are cracking on their own has been going on since I started in this business. I started doing this stuff in 2008 with MacBook and MacBook screen repair, and all the way back to the MacBook 2008, customers would come in and say the screen magically cracked on its own, and then I would replace it for them. And then funny, after I replaced it for them, they'd call me back, 2 weeks later saying it magically cracked on its own, and you could even sometimes see that the impact mark on the screen from the set part of the crack actually corresponds to where there is a discoloration in the top housing, most likely from where there was impact from it closing on an earbud or something. Everybody lies. Everybody lies. Now, the argument that Apple could have put a design flaw in here that makes the screen crack easier, there's also a lot of evidence in the past to back up that they could have screwed that up. So Apple is very good at screwing up things that other companies got right 20 years ago. And I have showed you this in some of the videos that I've done discussing frame problems. So this is an issue from an A12. This issue affects the A1150, A1211, A1226, A1260, A1261, A1229, A1151, and there's one more that I forget. But mostly the A1226, A1260, A1261, A1229 models. And you can see in this video, I'm going to demonstrate 2 possible ways that they could have screwed up the design that, again, every other company at the time was getting right besides Apple. So this is just a demonstration.
Issues. This machine is also host to a number of structural issues. Typically in laptops, in order to retain a strong display assembly, the hinge, which is going to be moving back and forth, is screwed into the back piece of the display assembly, that large plastic or metal piece. On here, Apple decided to take a different approach to every other manufacturer and screw the hinges into the frame. The frame is very, very thin, and as a result, it's a weaker part. In addition to being very thin and weak, it also has holes put in it so that there can be a screw that goes through to attach the screen to it. Now, right at the end, there's a really tiny thin piece of metal that you can see, and that thin piece of metal often...
Yeah, as you can see, when I move the machine back, there is a little crack over there. Because this is this like micro millimeter, whatever tiny little thing over here is all that is holding it together at this particular point. It's not very strong because it has a screw hole in it. That's why you're supposed to screw the screen into the back plate, not into the effing frame. Or if you're going to screw the screen into the back into the frame, then have the frame screwed into the back plate in more than one part, but they only screwed it in there at one part. So this is a design flaw that doesn't cause the screen to crack so much as it does the frame to crack, but this is one example of how they could have screwed up. There's another example of a screw up that they did just about 1 year after this. After this, they created a device called the unibody, the A1278 and A1286 and A1297 in 2008, the A1297 in 2009. And there's a blog post on my website with because we were fixing these left and right. People were going, I can't believe this broke because it's a unibody. And it's like, yeah, LOL, you actually believed what Apple told you. But one of the things that they did over here that was screwed up is they had 2 pieces of aluminum or aluminium, since I know Dave Jones watches from time to time, and they glued them together. And they glued it together right in the section where the fans exhaust hot air out of the case. And the hinge was on the part that was held together by glue. So every time you did something graphics intensive or CPU intensive, you were actually melting the 2 pieces, and eventually the back cover would break, and the frame yet again would get the brunt of the damage. And that's something that I also pictured and described in this video for those who don't understand my description.
Unibody model. This model is not actually machined from one piece of aluminum. It's machined from 2 pieces of aluminum that are actually glued together. And as you can see in the above video,
see, it comes unglued over here, and the frame breaks.
That breaks very, very easily and has for tens of thousands of customers, many of whom have come to our store. Now, if we were to take a more precise look at exactly how the machine is constructed, we can get a bit of a better understanding as to why this happened. So this is what one of the 2008 supposedly unibody MacBook Pros looks like. It has two fans, and these two fans are going to blow the hot air from the heatsink out the back of the computer. The heatsink fin is right up against the bottom of the display assembly. And the display assembly, as I showed you, is not a unibody. It's two pieces of metal that are glued together cheaply. Now, if we look at the machine from the side, you'll see that the airflow is going to be directly from the burning heatsink onto the bottom of the display assembly, the very part of the machine that's glued together. So every time you turn this computer on and do something processor or graphics intensive, you're actually heating up the glue that holds these two pieces of metal together and ungluing your machine. Now, creating a machine that costs over $2,000 that falls apart if you use it, that's one thing. To not have any sort of extended warranty or
Yeah, and Apple was, again, they never released a warranty program for this. If this happened to your computer, you were just screwed or stuck coming to a schmuck like me. Now, the thing that's really going to matter here is figuring out what's going on with the M1 MacBook. Did they screw this up again? Or is this just a case of users complaining? Now, the machines have been getting thinner and thinner and thinner as time goes on. So it's easy to believe that they are less durable because they are getting considerably thinner. They constantly are trying to shave off, a quarter of a millimeter here and there. And in that process, I'm confident that there's a possibility that it's less durable. I don't think that there's going to be some sort of specific design flaw the way that this happened, because they fixed this back in 2010 and 2012 with the Retina, with the 13-inch. With the 13-inch, this wasn't as much a problem because the screen assembly wasn't that heavy. With the 15-inch, it was a serious problem because those screens were heavier, but they fixed that in 2010. I don't think that Apple is making the same mistakes in 2021 that they were making back in 2007, 8, and 9, because they've learned, and also, admittedly, the screens are so thin now that they don't have the ability to have, two pieces glued together. There's just not enough space for that. So, is it possible that they screwed up the design? Yeah, again, they screw up. I mean, let's just be real here. Their engineering team could fuck up a wet dream. The 2016 and 17 MacBook Pros, as I've gone over, the screen cable is too short so that when you open it, like, I swear to God, when people bring this machine into me and I work on it, I open it like this. I don't open it all the way because I'm afraid of breaking the screen cable and then being held responsible for it. That's something called FlexGate that I have also covered on my channel, where you can only open the screen a certain amount because the cable is too short, and I covered that here in this video that has the thumbnail. You're getting effed, which demonstrates that the size of the cable is different in the newer model than in the older one, but they still weren't covering them all under warranty. So they've managed to make the screen cable too short so that it scratches against the device and breaks it. They've managed to make a device where the cooling system actually melts the screen assembly and causes it to crumble. It would be easy for me to believe that they screwed something up in a new model. But am I going to just blindly believe that there's a design flaw before it's been demonstrably proven simply because people claim it's cracking on its own? Absolutely not. And even for a company like Apple that I absolutely despise, I'm not going to throw them under a bus simply because people are claiming that it cracks on its own. Because again, as I've shown, for over 14 or 15 years of the existence of the MacBook, people have been claiming that screens crack on their own. They've been claiming this for almost every single brand and model of device that has a glass screen. Because at the end of the day, people believe that if they lie to themselves enough, if they actually convince themselves that they did not break it, that they will get the repair for free. And I went through that entire mentality over 8 years ago, about almost 9 years ago now, on this channel in my store in Brooklyn, which failed 6 months later because I'm a shit businessman, but I digress. I went over that, and you can watch these 3 or 4 videos. I'll link it down below, the You Broke It professional laptop repair customer service video. People convince themselves of what they want to believe. A, I didn't spill anything. B, I didn't crack it. The liquid got there on its own. It cracked on its own. Glass does not crack on its own. On a laptop that you're opening and closing or whatever, you get, okay, fine, maybe it's not designed very durably, but people have such incredible ability to deceive themselves if they think that there's a possibility of saving money, that even the person in this thread will actually post in public claiming that this might have cracked on its own when this thing looks like somebody took a pickaxe and just smacked the front of his screen. So I am not ready to throw Apple under the bus for this yet. And I'm, again, on this channel, Anytime I defend Apple, 100% record, I've been proven wrong within 2 to 6 months. Like 100% of the time that I defend Apple, I said that something like that happens. And I'm confident that there's a chance that I will be eating my words. But I would rather eat my words later than say something, than hedge my bets by just assuming that they screwed up right now. Because that would be a disingenuous thing to do. It would be going against what I've said in my old videos, and just because I dislike them as a company, it doesn't mean that I'm just going to throw them under a bus because people are claiming screens crack on their own when people have been making this shit up since literally the beginning of time to try to get out of having to pay for a repair. I'm open to the idea that the newer machines are less durable as a result of them being thinner, but I'm just not willing to. I'm not willing to believe that somebody had a machine and it wasn't cracked. They went to sleep. They came back in the morning, and it just magically cracked on its own. That doesn't happen. Maybe in a household that has a Mr. Clinton, maybe in a household that has a cat that has ruined my speakers, that has broken 2 windows, that has tried to knock over Erica's laptop, that has tried to knock over the cooking material, that has broken my foldable bed when he was 3 months old. If your household has a Clinton, then maybe, just maybe, the screen is cracking on its own. But if your household does not have a Clinton, 99% of the time it's the user breaking it. And again, I'm open to the idea that maybe it's just a little bit less durable because it is a newer model and they're thinner, but cracked on its own, no. I haven't gotten enough of these machines yet to really be able to determine whether or not this is a full design flaw. And once we start getting our hands on more of them, if this winds up being a design flaw, I will reference this video. I will say that I was wrong about it not being a design flaw, and I will show you all what it is, just as I showed you what the design flaw was in the older, quote, unibody MacBooks that are actually just several pieces that are glued together. That's it for today. And as always, I hope you learned something. I will link to all the videos that I played here down below so that you could watch them and get an idea of what's going on. And yeah, I'll see you all in the next video. I'm going to be spending the next week and a half traveling around Massachusetts to try and get some repair shops excited about Right to Repair, talking about Right to Repair, and speaking to their legislators and their customers about it so that maybe we have a better chance of not getting laughed out of the legislature this year compared to prior years. So if you're in Massachusetts, do keep an eye on the community page. I'm going to be visiting about 28 or 29 repair shops, and I'm also going to be doing a general meetup once I find an area that would make sense to just have a bunch of random people show up to. I will see you all in the next video. Bye now.